So hopefully you have the basic idea of XML as names inside of names. Let's talk about the different tools that one would use for creating XML, for writing XML. For a word processor, we use a word processing. Documents, we use a word processing tool. For spreadsheets, we use a spreadsheet tool. For XML, we're going to use an XML tool. Of course, because XML is just flat text, it's just plain old text, you could write it in Notepad or the equivalent, in some sort of editor that only deals with text files. And in fact, some people do that, but I think it's like writing a word processing file inside of it, or it's like writing HTML actually inside of a text editor. There are better tools, and the tool we're going to use is called an IDE, an integrated development environment for XML. It gives you all the tools you need to write, transform, validate, create schemas, that sort of thing, create output files from XML. That's the kind of tool we're going to use in general. Specifically, the tool we're going to use is called Oxygen. So the first image you see on your screen is a screenshot of not Oxygen, but another tool called XML Spy. There's a whole range of tools. And XML Spy, or Oxygen, gives you a tag view, and it gives you lots of color coding, for example, for syntax, and it gives you ways of auto-indenting the tags and auto-filling in values and that sort of thing. So it's a very convenient tool for typing in XML. But it's a developer tool. It's an architect tool. It's a tool for us. It's not a tool for an end user. There are a variety of other ways that one might write XML. And in the second image here, you see it's also XML Spy, but Oxygen will do something similar, of giving you sort of a WYSIWYG view, of a way of looking at the XML so that you don't really see the tags. That's theoretically a good way to give end users a view or a good way to type in XML without looking at the tags. But as far as I'm concerned, eventually end users, if they're going to create good XML, they don't need to know about tags, but they do need to know about the names, right? So for example, we have this idea of a composition. How could you write a composition if you don't know it has to have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, and a title, and an author, and the author has to have a first and a last name? Right? There's a lot that goes on in understanding the underlying model before you can create valid XML. And that, in essence, is really a big difference between doing XML and doing, for example, word processing or even HTML. Those are all freeform. They're non-validated. There's no reason why you couldn't have 4, 5, 6, 7 names for the author, or no introduction or an introduction. The convenience of that for the author is clear. They don't have to worry about structure. The inconvenience is that we have no idea what they've written or how to deal with what they've written. When we have a model behind what you write, then we have the way of automatically dealing with it and making sure that it's right, making sure that it's consistent, making sure it has everything it needs to have. When we have a model behind what you write, then we have the way of automatically dealing with it and making sure that it's right, making sure that it's consistent, making sure it has everything it needs to have, making sure it can be effectively transformed and represented. There's a lot of benefits that come with that, and the biggest, probably the major detriment or the major problem that comes with that is not being able to allow end users to do what they'd like to do, which is just start typing and come up with their own model for what a composition is, and have no two compositions really be alike. Okay, image number 3 here is a somewhat fancier tool for doing that WYSIWYG kind of thing. This one's called XMetal, sometimes deployed in organizations to give end users a way of writing XML. Also includes a little programming language with it, so you can do things and give prompts and do automatic fill-ins and that sort of thing. So there are a whole set of WYSIWYG end-user friendly tools. The fourth image that you have there is an image of actually Microsoft Word. And Microsoft Word, in the last few versions, has been able to give you kind of a tags-on view of XML right in Microsoft Word. And in addition, of course, Microsoft Word now has the capability of saving its files as XML, but that's all behind the scenes. It saves its files XML, loads it back in, you never see anything about XML. It's just XML is a way for it behind the scenes to deal with its files. But there's also a way in Word, and you can do this simply by opening an XML file in Word. There's a way of having a tags on and view and being able to actually edit the XML itself. Although I don't know why you would do that. The tools that we're going to use are far superior than using Word for that. And then finally, a lot of XML is generated by typing into forms. There's a web form, and the web form, just like all web forms, has a set of controls on it, text boxes, drop downs, et cetera, et cetera. And by filling in those text boxes and drop downs, you're filling in the XML. You're creating the element structure of the XML. One extra thing that you'll often find in an XML form environment is the little toolbar. So you see in this picture there's a toolbar across the top that allows you to add tags inside of a text box. You're not quite in a position to understand this yet, but by the end of the course you'll understand why just having a text box to type in a paragraph of text is not okay. Because inside that paragraph of text we could have tags. And so how would you put that into a separate set of different text boxes? You can't really do it. If one word inside of a sentence is tagged as a cross-reference or something like that, or a keyword, how would you create a set of boxes so that you type in half of the sentence and then you type under it in a box? It just doesn't work, right? So there has to be a way of tagging inside of a paragraph of text. We'll call that inline tagging later on, and that's what the toolbars are really about inside of XML form editors. Okay, so we have all these different ways of writing XML. We're going to stay pretty much on the developer side of it. We're not really going to play around with the end user tools for writing XML. Not that that's not interesting, we just probably won't get there in this course.